black students, we need to know our history.
The black history we're being taught in public schools is repetitive.
As a black high school student, I want to learn more about my history in the school books.
We need to update our books.
As black American students, we deserve an accurate depiction of what black history truly is.
I want to see myself in these textbooks.
In the public school system, black history is vague.
Why don't the school books ever talk about the Freedmen's Bureau?
I created the workbook for the African American family. This book helps fill in the gaps that the school books don't. Purchase the workbook for the African American family on OurStoryPublications.com and use the Cash App $ Our Story Publications.
Good evening. On this Tuesday evening, we're going to address a couple issues. Number one, does one drop of black blood make you black? I'm just asking. You know, President Eisenhower had a couple of drops of black blood. His mama was a whole mulatto. People don't know that. Eisenhower was looked at as one of the greatest military leaders in history and one of the most epic wars of all time. And nobody thought of him as black. So what is this one drop rule about? Wani, does one drop of black blood make you black?
I don't know. I mean, it just depends on who's talking at the moment.
It's all nonsense.
Yeah, and like I said, if you say, well, if you have over 50% or you have over 60%, you have to identify as African, which is what the whole argument is. Who's forcing us to identify as them and not allowing us some space to do our own thing? If we have to keep talking to these people, then it makes me start to think about logic. So if, that's like saying that Cuban people, if they have 60 to 70% Spanish DNA, then they have to identify as Spanish people? No, they're allowed to be Cuban, and nobody is going to force them to do anything. They have a certain level of respect for them that they don't have for us, and they're going to have to learn how to have respect for us because they do not bother these other people like that. I mean, it's ridiculous. And why is it that the African ancestry is prioritized over other groups? So if I have one drop of Portuguese blood like most Brazilians have, you don't have Portuguese people saying you have to identify as Portuguese. You don't have people acting like that. It's only Africans that are saying that we have to identify with them based on their belief of our African genetics, when in reality, research shows that you can have 1% African DNA or 99% and be perceived as a Black American. And I've seen that, on these DNA tests where people will have like only 10%, or it's really not showing a lot of African DNA, but they still look like a Black American. So, I mean, going by percentages isn't going to work. And so I don't really know what their game plan is and why they feel compelled to force people to identify with them.
Right. It's all a finesse and it's a hustle. But my thing is, if it's so scientific and Europeans are so, scientific and want to say the data and statistics. I hate those buzzwords. I hate them because they don't mean anything. As a scholar, I've dealt with statistics. I was a whole statistician at a college, and I worked for Congress. I did a congressional report on COVID-19, which I'm going to talk about one of these days. And I realized that the word statistics means nothing because you can fudge numbers to make them say whatever the fuck you want. Furthermore, all these people coming up in our spaces talking about the data, the statistic. They don't tell me where you get the damn data from. It'd be one thing if you say that according to Brookings Institute, the data says this, but I digress. I'm saying this whole who's black and who's not thing is unscientific. In the Jumbotron, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see President Eisenhower, which is one of the most famous and revered, quote unquote, white presidents in American history, a World War II hero. But here goes the problem. Look at his mother. His mother was blacker than my mother. Look at the picture. So, is he black?
She looks like Sally Hemings.
Yeah. My mother looks more Caucasian than his mother did. But he was a white president. How does that work? How do you get to pick and choose? Can somebody please tell me?
I don't know. I mean, that's a very good question. Hey, DJ.
Big A up in this batch.
What's up, Professor Wani? And who's the other co-host? I don't know how to say your name. Kushite. Is that how you say it?
You got it.
All right. Yeah, what's up, y'all? Look, I just want, because I seen this title. I finally got to catch y'all. So, man, hey, that's what's up. Look, the one drop, do it make you black? In my own opinion, I would say absolutely not. And it's because I think what they did, and it's just me, how I perceive it, because, white folks don't do shit without thinking about it. I think when they pushed that one drop rule, they knew that they had a plan to use people with the one drop against us. So we see this now. We see it throughout just how we move now, how we pay attention to, because for a minute, we all believed it. We was like, yeah, one drop. Yeah, you black. Your ass is black. Oh, your daddy black. Oh, you black. You know what I'm saying? But we see how these people move. They move fraudulently, and they undermine us in every aspect of. Now, we got some that's cool, I guess I would say, but at the same time, they never going to be 100% on code with black people. So, me personally, I say people who believe in the one drop rule in today's time is racist, because it was created on something racist. And we shouldn't be we can accept the blackness that's in them, but no, you're not black, in my own opinion. You mixed, and you should be cool with being mixed. And I don't think you should be at the forefront speaking for black people. But yeah, that's interesting right here with the Eisenhower thing. I never knew this about his mother, though. That's very interesting. But in his time, yeah, he would be considered black. And in that day and age, with that one drop.
Hey DJ, did that come from eugenics? That the before you start talking about that, did what you was just saying come from eugenics, the one drop stuff?
I'm not sure. This is just my own, just me, just kind of just looking back in time and seeing how it's been weaponized. So I'm just using my own brain here and just kind of just coming up with my own kind of thesis on this, so to speak. It's not something that's set in stone. But I'm just going back in time and seeing that, white people, they don't do stuff without having a plan for it. And so, yeah, they'll push it. Yeah, you black. Treat them like they black. And then all of a sudden, get them cozied up. And then now it's cool to have little mixed kids. And, hey, you know what? They going to think that they black because they like to claim everybody with accomplishments, that they got black blood in them. So, yeah, hey, so let's use them. You know what I'm saying? So that's just me.
Well, to your point, DJ Big A, about that plan and using them, you made me think of J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover had black lineage. In fact, back in Louisiana where he was from, his family tried to cosplay as, white people. They were mulattoes. And somebody called them out and ran their ass up out of Louisiana. And a lot of people speculate that's why he had so much hatred for black, because he wanted to be white so bad. But if you look at this picture right here, He looked like some of my cousins and shit. How does he persecute a whole group of black people when his ass up there looking like a brother?
Hey, what's
That's
that?
probably what it was.
Is it Stockholm syndrome?
I don't think so. Stockholm syndrome is when somebody kidnaps you against your will, and over time, as a function of survival, you start to fall in love with them.
So here's the issue. I agree. We're not going to accept people that look physically white, even if they have 10% or 5%, because that's what's going on with the settlers. They're black. If you look at their DNA, they're black. They have 1%, 5%, 20%, and they are passing for white. So the difference between us and the Cubans is that our colonizer oftentimes is very fair, like they could have blonde hair and blue eyes, where the Spanish colonizing and the Portuguese, they're already mixed. They have Moorish ancestry, so they can only make those people in South America and the Caribbean a certain whiteness. They can never achieve really being white unless they're, somebody's just outright down there having sex. But generally speaking, we know when somebody is a light Hispanic, they can only achieve a certain level of whiteness with all these admixtures. And nobody's going to say somebody with mostly like 99% Spanish and 1% indigenous or 1% African, no one's going to say they're not Cuban, right? They're just as Cuban as the person who looks like a typical black person. A dark-skinned black person is just as Cuban as someone who is as white as a Cuban can be. But there is a range, and the range doesn't go to blonde hair and blue eyes. But that's not the case up here. Up here in North America, a black American can be dark-skinned and they can look like Heather Locklear. Go look up Heather Locklear. Heather Locklear has black and Native American ancestry. She's Lumbee. But we're not going to accept her as black for whatever reasons, most of them because of the hostility from white people. But the Cubans don't do it like that. Everybody over there is Cuban, but everybody up here is not one group because of the hostilities. Everyone up here has the same range, except we can look white. We can look blonde hair and blue-eyed, but people in the islands and in South America can't, and we're not going to visually accept it. And if Heather Locklear walks down the street, knowing her background, which she willingly spoke about, if she had a black boyfriend, people would want to, say something about it. So it doesn't translate, but we have the same combinations as everybody else has with their colonizers, except we're the only group that can look extremely white as a result of the type of colonizers that we had. And that's why we have a lot of people walking around that are actually black that just pass for white because of the convenience of it, because we're not willing to say that Americans look like this, from dark skin all the way to blonde hair and blue eyed. Now, the way that the European cover their tracks, there's only about 15% of people that come from the colonist class or the settler class. Everybody else is a new immigrant, an Ellis Island person and beyond. So they have basically drowned out all of the original white people, and most of those people are definitely mixed. So there you go. There's a difference between the way that we look when we're heavily mixed with European and the way that other people that are heavily mixed with Portuguese and Spanish DNA look, because those people are already mixed with Moorish blood.
Go ahead, Chris.
So I wanted to jump in here on this topic about the one drop rule, because this rule goes all the way back to the 1600s, to mid 1600s. And I had to go look for it because some stuff I just have randomly in my brain. So the one drop rule actually was a law established in Virginia, and it comes from, they call it that which is born follows the womb, or the baby follows the belly. So partus sequitur ventrum is Latin for that which is born follows the womb. And it was established in 1662. And I can put this in a Jumbotron a little bit later, what I'm reading from, or people can Google it, the baby follows the belly. But to your point, Professor, about how people can pick and choose when a baby's going to be this or be that, or how Eisenhower could, see by air quotes, be white. Before this law that was established in Virginia, of all places, in 1662, the British had a patrilineal they followed the patrilineal line, the father's line, but for the purposes of keeping slavery going and further, see my air quotes, codifying slavery or whatever, they came up with this law in Virginia, the baby follows the belly, meaning that children that were born to enslaved mothers, those children would be black like the mother, and they would then be enslaved. And this is how we have this circular or this generational enslavement. So what it allowed for, in many ways, was it allowed for these white slave owners to rape these women, to then have these babies, say that these babies were slaves and could be human trafficked even further. And these children would also not be entitled to any of what would be passed down through the patrilineal line. So these children would not be entitled to land property unless that father were to will it, which goes back to what's the man? Thomas Jefferson, Sally Hemings' baby father. He didn't pass nothing down to his kid. Like, they weren't entitled to anything. Even though he was the white father, they weren't entitled to anything. And so that's pretty much, that whole one drop rule goes all the way back to white people just trying to codify into law slavery, generational slavery, chattel slavery, where people would forever just be in bondage by blood in perpetuity.
Interesting. Could you post that one drop rule in the Jumbotron, Kush?
Yep, I'm gonna drop the link to what I was reading. Yep.
And hold on a second, if we went by the father's line, then it would be known that 36 to 40% of black males carry the R haplogroup from Europe, and they don't want to go there, even though they already did. That's how I found out about it. Now, when I look, I'm very, in tune with seeing when people are black. But when I look at Heather Locklear, she never rang a bell. She never rang a bell.
It's something about her nose a little bit. It's something going on, but not a lot. But when I was younger, in the state of Alabama, in them schools with them white boys back in elementary school, everybody, Heather Locklear, I would think that they would have, said something, but she never rang a bell back in the day.
She never said anything till later. And the other guy, Leif Garrett, he was another, I think, a 70s heartthrob, blonde hair, blue eyes. He also said that he had a black grandmother, and then we never saw him again. He made that statement.
They got rid of his ass.
I never saw his ass again. There's been other people. One of the ice skaters, I forget her name. She was passing for white, and her grandmother was kind of covering it up. So, yeah, but you could look at her and see something was going on. But like I said, a portion of these people are going to want to pass for white. And the other people, we just physically look at them and just feel like you're not black. Why should you be speaking for us? Or why should you be perceived as black if you look white? It's very awkward. And we just don't have the same mindset as people in Cuba do, where they all view themselves as Cuban, all the way from the very lightest Cuban to the brownest Cuban. We just don't have that going on for a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah. This is something worth talking about. Like, what are we talking about here? What's the issue here? Like, how are we deciding this? It's so willy-nilly. It's so disorganized. It's such a lie. Ladies and gentlemen, as a historian, we are, as a licensed historian dealing with these history books, for the most part, are just a big jumble of lies. Like DJ Big A alluded to, it's like psychological warfare to divide and conquer. If you have one drop of black blood, according to the maxim that the rule that Kush just brought up, it's my understanding that you're black, according to the rule. But you make exceptions for people based on what? We live in a just insane society. It's madness.
Yeah. And there was another actress named Myrna Loy. She's also passing. And she was running around trying to make sure that all the black people in her movies were not portrayed in a disrespectful manner, because they would have like servants and people on trains and stuff. She fought for them to not be portrayed poorly in the movies, and nobody knew why. And again, at the end of the day, that's why, because she was passing. Wow.
Well, the tragic mulatto has always been very dangerous. I mean, let's go back to J. Edgar Hoover. It's my opinion, in my view of history, that they want to hide the fact that they got Negro blood so bad that they go hard against black people. I mean, Abraham Lincoln didn't care about black people like the history books say he does. I've read scholarship that said Abraham Lincoln, the moment he used us to win the Civil War, he was trying to get rid of us. He sent us to Haiti, and I think he was behind legislation to try to send us to Africa to get rid of us. He didn't want to emancipate the slaves. It was a function of necessity. But, he obviously had Negro blood with that hair, and that skin color. Abraham Lincoln was my color almost. You know what I'm saying? So what are we talking about here? Where's the line? Well, what I will tell you is growing up with, as Wani says, white people. I went to a white high school, and some of my white colleagues at that high school were getting married. And I was just so confused as to their parents when they met a girl. Their parents it was they call it something, but it was a dinner where they would sit down and go through genealogy to understand exactly who your grandparents and your great-grandparents were and all that. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I get it. They were trying to make absolutely sure that it wasn't any black blood in the lineage. Why does this go so deep with these people? What am I missing?
Yes, I was just kind of following you guys, and I think a lot of that stuff.
IB, hold on 1 second. Wani, you had a comment?
No, I was going to say IB, go.
Oh, go ahead, IB.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that 1% blood thing was a classification as of keeping blacks in slavery and basically keeping the status quo of building America in free labor. And, I don't have a lot to say. I just think that that's what a lot of that stuff was, basically to just keep the, like they said, the slave master messing with the slaves and keeping that free labor going. And I land.
Well, it says a lot. Thank you, brother. It says a lot. We need to study history more closely. We need to be students of history, Black Americans. As FBAs, we need to understand the culture, be a student of social studies and understand the culture of these people. These people are willing, like IB said, to enslave their own children. Like, how can you build a successful reciprocal union with a group of people who are perfectly okay with enslaving and raping and maiming their own kids? Like, what are we dealing with here? I think we need to understand, get a better context of understanding of exactly who we're dealing with. What are your thoughts, Stacey?
Hey, everybody, my FBA family, how y'all been? I know I've been a little MIA lately.
Where you been?
I kind of get over this, whatever. I don't know if it was bronchitis or a cold or whatever. And then working, because I'm always working. But
I hope you
every
feel
now
better,
and
Stacey.
sometimes my brain needs a break because it's so much going on.
Oh yeah.
But to comment on the passing whites, I had a great grandfather who could have passed, but he hated white people because of what they had done to him. But you have the ones who do pass, and I feel like they try to be so far removed because it's almost like there's a lot of hate. There's some self-hate. There's some hate for their situation, why they are the way they are. So they have to pick a side. The fact that they had to choose, the fact that they chose to pick the side where, number one, they could have an easier life. But then number two, they always have this worry of getting caught. So now they have to cover that up. So it's like, you ever see how a person who's gay and they're trying to hide it, and so they go beat up on gay people? Or they're always calling somebody the F word, or it's like, to me, I feel like that's how they were. They have to be so far removed. And how do you overact? How do you prove that you're not one of us? You show how much you hate us. You show how much, I'm not one of you. This is how much I hate these people. I'm not one of them. I could never be one of them. This is how much I hate them. I mean, just like, Hitler, they said he was a Jew. He tried killing Jews. He was a prostitute. He was gay. He hated gay people. So it seems like all the things that, they hate the most are actually what they are. And they're trying to kill them off. And then it's kind of like, let me hide behind this so nobody figures out who I really am. So that's just the way it seems like to me. Like you said, Abraham, that Hoover idiot.
That's definitely the way it is. It's just that some people don't try to pass, but the ones that are trying, just like the Italians and the Jews, are always the ones in the comments attacking us. We rarely have an actual white person attacking us. It's always white adjacent people. Go ahead, Stacey.
Oh no, yeah, you're good. I'm pretty much for now. That's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. I didn't even look at the question. One drop mentioned. You know what? That whole one drop rule, that's so dumb. I think, and that's their fault. Because it's weird how it doesn't seem to apply today. Because there's so many people that could be black with a drop of, and when you talk about people who like what they look like or don't look like, I actually have a cousin. This is a funny story real quick. She got pulled over and she went home and got mad about being pulled over and getting a ticket from this white officer. And she tells her mom, she goes, I'm going to fight this ticket. I think he was racial profiling me. Now, mind you, we know she's black, my family, because she's with us. So we know. And when you look at her, I think any of us were to look at her and would be like, she looks mixed. But white people might think, she looks like them. Her mom, when my cousin looked at her ticket, she started laughing. On the ticket, he put down that she was white. He thought she was a white girl. And no, she's black. So we were kind of laughing. So, when we talk about how we come in all shades, hair textures, everything, it's just crazy. Do African men honor women? Hell no. Them fools are crazy. I would never want to be with one or date one. That Tyler girl, I've only recently been hearing about her. And I guess her being disrespectful. Now, when she mentioned something about, I guess they were saying that people overreacted her calling herself colored or whatever. I was like, well, if that's what she want to call herself, fine. If that's what they do out there. But then when people checked her and she didn't want to apologize or kind of the way she was treating people. And then they said something about how she was with Usher, the body language or whatever. And I thought to myself, okay, well then, go blow up in Africa, girl. You got it. You're a pretty girl. Go stay in Africa and do your thing and let them buy your music or let them. Why? And that's the thing. Why does everybody want to be in America so bad?
Because
why do we all want to blow up in America so bad? You know what I'm saying?
There's nowhere else to blow up, apparently.
Exactly.
They don't develop anything. They just come and ride up on what we developed.
Right. And then have the nerve to be disrespectful, though. It's like, look, you better, if we run this, and we can run your ass out. So when they do that, don't get mad. Excuse me. Don't get mad when we don't fall for the bullshit. Don't get mad when we don't kiss your ass. Don't get mad when we we put the rules down. We set the stage for all this. So guess what? If we don't like you and we ain't rocking with you, don't get mad at us. Humble yourself. And if you can't do that, stay in your country. We don't need you over here. Y'all need us. We don't need y'all.
Now, Tyler is, again, the South Africans are very ignorant about everything. All Africans are horribly ignorant about all of these conversations we're having right now. They think everybody light skin has a white mother. So I don't even know if we should waste our time talking to these people. Anyway, Tyler is Zulu, Mauritanian, Indian, and Irish. She is, in fact, what they would call a colored person.
Or we would just call her a mutt.
Right. She's what you would call colored. She's being called colored not because Zulu people said, hey, if we mix with Irish people, we're going to call ourselves colored. She's being called colored because the apartheid structure named people. Hey, guess who else they named colored? Us. Guess why we were named colored? For the same identical reason she's called colored. They think that our colored is different than their colored. And they don't understand why we threw that name away. So if we go back to the term colored, we were called colored because we were mixed. Okay. So if somebody said, he's more colored than you, that wouldn't sound right because everybody was colored. So a light-skinned black person and a dark-skinned black person would not say he's more colored than you. Colored means mixed. And it's just like one term, just like Cuban doesn't mean dark Cuban or light Cuban. So this is why they're confused, because they think that our colored meant something else. And why would we throw that away? Why would we throw the distinction of being mixed into the trash can? They don't understand why we would choose black, because in their lands, black means African to them. And they're classifying Africans as black. Again, this is all white people just making up stuff. And calling these other people colored. This is their way of saying, let's give these people a bone because they're not, they have more white in them and more other things. We want them to be treated better. And so we'll throw them a bone. They tried to do that to us, colored, mulatto, octoroon, and we just threw the whole system away because that would divide us as a people.
Facts.
And we didn't want that, so we threw it away. And also, a lot of these white men wanted their children to have privileges, and they got the privileges. But even though a lot of those HBCUs were designed for mulatto people, ultimately everybody ended up going there. Even my grandmother, she wouldn't be considered. My grandmother on my father's side went to a school that was for mulattoes, but she wouldn't be considered a mulatto, and she didn't have a white parent. So ultimately, Black people went to those schools.
Yeah, my grandmother, who was dark honey brown, got accepted to Howard in D.C. on a full scholarship, academic and music. She played piano. And they back then, Howard would ask for a picture to put on your admissions packet. And she put a picture of herself on the admissions packet, and they denied her. They rejected her admissions and rejected her scholarship. Almost gave her a nervous breakdown. So she went to see the doctor to get something to deal with that. And the doctor prescribed her cigarettes. She ended up dying of lung cancer. So, this stuff is deep. And Howard, like Wani said, was created for mulatto children. It was created for the children of the white bureaucrats and politicians who had babies with the help. I think a similar situation goes on with Hampton. So this race is the core. The truth of the matter is race is the core issue in America. It always has been. And like the late, great Paul Mooney used to say, America feeds on race like a monster.
You know what I was thinking about? Something that Miss Stacy said about the one drop rule backfiring on the dominant society. And we can see that today because their numbers are dwindling. Now imagine if all of those slave owners, their children, they had followed the patrilineal, they had followed what the British were always doing, which was to follow the patrilineal line. All of those children, born to those enslaved Black women, would be white. And the dominant society would not have an issue with their numbers today, because imagine all of the bastard children that they had with those slave women, and all of the children and great-grandchildren and so on and so forth and so on and so forth 25 years into the 21st century. But they'd rather sit and continue to practice anti-Black racism, and they'd rather augment their numbers and stack the paper, as you said, Professor, fudging the numbers by bringing over Africans from the continent that are darker than you and I. Well, darker than my grandfather, because I'm lighter than everybody in my family, but darker than my grandfather and my grandparents, East Indians, darker than us. And they would rather have a Kamala Harris mother marked as a Caucasian than for those of us who are the descendants of the enslaved, our ancestors, as you said, your grandmother, if I'm not mistaken, grandmother, great-grandmother, was a victim of one of these slave owners. Many of us were. Many of us have in our lineage our ancestors were victims of these people, these harms.